You're born in a private wing of a hospital in Brooklyn. Your father has three men stationed at every floor. The nurses whisper among themselves because they've never seen security like this for a newborn. The obstetrician who delivers you receives an envelope with $40,000 in cash. No receipt. No questions. Your first breath is met with silence from the men in the hallway. Then a single nod from your father. Why? And then the uncorking of a bottle of 1996 Barolo that costs more than most people's monthly rent. You're 6 days old and there's already a gold chain with a pennant of St. Cecilia around your crib, blessed by a priest your family has funded for 30 years. You didn't choose any of this, but it already chose you. Your childhood unfolds in a compound on the south shore of Staten Island. 11,000 square feet. A stone fountain imported from Sicily. A garden with lemon trees your grandmother insisted on planting. A chapel where mass is held every Sunday by a priest who never asked questions. A kitchen that is never empty because in your family an empty table is considered a disgrace. The property is worth $4.7 million on paper. Your father paid $600,000 in 1989. The rest was built with cash that never touched a bank account. You have everything a little girl could dream of except one thing, the possibility of being ordinary. You don't attend regular schools. A private Catholic academy sends tutors directly to the house 3 days a week. Your father pays them $1,200 per session, triple the market rate, for one condition. They never discuss your family with anyone. You spend your afternoons with your cousins, children of your father's associates, kids who let you win every game because they already understand the hierarchy you haven't yet grasped. Your first clear memory involves the kitchen, your grandmother making fresh pasta while four men sit drinking espresso in complete silence. Men with thick necks and thicker hands. Men who call you Principessa when you're barely 6 years old. Your father adores you. He braids your hair on Sunday mornings with surprising delicacy for a man with hands that size. He reads to you before bed. Always Italian fairy tales, never American ones. But there's a dimension of him that remains behind closed doors, in the way his jaw tightens during certain phone calls, in the way men arrive at 3 a.m. and leave before dawn, in the way your mother crosses herself quietly after those visits and says nothing. Your mother. She was raised in Bensonhurst and married your father at 19, a woman of devastating beauty and absolute silence. She never asks where the money comes from, but you watch her hands. At Sunday Mass, her fingers move across the rosary with a speed that has nothing to do with devotion and everything to do with anxiety. When your father leaves at unusual hours, she stands at the kitchen window and doesn't move until his headlights reappear in the driveway. She never says she's afraid. Years later, you'll realize she taught you more about this life than your father ever did. She taught you that love, in your world, means swallowing your terror in silence and setting the table anyway. At 8, you ask the inevitable question. What exactly does your dad do? She places a fork down carefully. He provides for us. He has businesses. Construction, restaurants, waste management. You want to believe her, but you've already noticed the 14 security cameras around the property. The way store owners greet your father with a mixture of warmth and visible anxiety. The envelopes. Thick, unmarked, always exchanged in back rooms. You've counted. Your father receives envelopes at least 3 times a week. Your education is a masterclass in duality. Your father is obsessive about academics. You're going to be smarter than all of them. I never finished school. You're going to be legitimate. You master Italian, study literature, art history, mathematics. You develop a passion for architecture. But you also absorb lessons no curriculum contains. Silence is worth more than any spoken word. Family is not a concept, but a blood contract. Your father's generosity and his capacity for cruelty are not contradictions. They are the same force expressed in different directions. At 12, your father takes you to your first important dinner. A restaurant in Little Italy the family has owned for 4 decades. Closed to the public. 25 men already seated. Every single one stands when your father walks in. He doesn't introduce you with a speech. He places his hand on your shoulder and walks you to the table. The men understand. Not a word is necessary. In that instant, you stop being simply a child. You become the daughter. You meet the consigliere around the same time. Silver-haired, impeccably dressed, speaks like a man who has argued before federal judges and negotiated truces between men who wanted each other dead. Your father treats him with a respect he shows no one else. This man has saved our family more times than any soldier ever could. The consigliere simplifies his role for you one afternoon. Imagine your father builds houses. but some of the money comes from places the government wouldn't approve of. So I make sure it travels through enough legitimate doors that by the time it becomes a building, nobody can trace where it started. You ask if that isn't lying. It's lying, yes. But it's the kind of lying that keeps this family together. Your adolescence becomes a negotiation between two worlds. Summers on the Amalfi Coast in a villa your father bought for $2.1 million under a Liechtenstein trust. Almost free. Then September arrives, the armored SUV picks you up, and you remember that freedom was only ever borrowed. At 15, your father hands you the keys to a black Mercedes S-Class, $114,000. Bulletproof glass that doesn't look bulletproof. A kiss on the forehead. Always check the mirrors. Always know your exits. You begin to understand the operations. At the top, your father. Below, the captains. But the real architecture rests on three pillars: the consigliere, the underboss, your uncle, and the network of legitimate businesses. 14 construction companies across 3 states. 9 restaurants reporting 3 times their actual revenue. A waste management operation billing the city $23 million a year. Real estate layered through holding companies in Delaware, Nevada, and the Cayman Islands, so complex that FBI forensic accountants have spent 6 years trying to untangle them and failed. At 18, you leave for Columbia University. Tuition, $62,000 a year. Paid through a scholarship fund your family created and your family controls. Officially, a bright young woman from a successful Italian-American family. You develop a genuine love for architecture, and then you meet him. A boy from Connecticut with kind eyes and an old money last name. He takes you to brunch in the village and talks about his family's sailing trips with an innocence that physically hurts you. He thinks your family is charmingly traditional. He doesn't know the nightly call from your father is a security check. He doesn't know your apartment has $35,000 in discrete security features. He doesn't know your phone connects to men who would arrive within 4 minutes. One night, lying next to him, you almost tell him everything. The words form in your chest and rise to your throat, and you swallow them back down like glass. That's the night you understand that real intimacy is something this life will never allow you. The consigliere mentors you personally. Your father builds buildings, he tells you, but you will build institutions. Foundations, trusts, endowments. The kind of structures that make a family name permanent. That make people forget what the name once meant. You're being groomed not as a successor to the throne, but as its architect. The one who will bury the empire's roots so deep into legitimate soil that no one will ever be able to pull them out. He shows you numbers that rearrange your understanding of scale. The family generates roughly $350 million annually across all operations. After expenses, legal fees that exceed $4 million a year, payments to associates, political contributions to 11 elected officials across 2 states, and the cost of maintaining loyalty, approximately $140 million remains in net profit. Of that, around $90 million is successfully laundered through the businesses, the real estate, the construction cycle. The remaining $50 million sits as cash, stored in safes, hidden in walls, buried in vacuum-sealed containers on properties in New Jersey. $50 million a year that can't be spent, can't be deposited, can't exist in the legitimate world. Some of it deteriorates. Humidity, rodents, time. The family loses roughly $3 million a year to physical decomposition of paper currency. It sounds absurd. It's completely real. The greatest challenge isn't earning, the consigliere explains. It's converting. Every transaction over $10,000 is flagged, every pattern analyzed. The family employs 8 people in a discreet office in Midtown that looks like a regular accounting firm. Their job is to move cash through 22 shell companies, 6 fictitious loan structures, and a rotating network of small businesses that deposit just under the reporting threshold. $9,500 here, $8,800 there. Hundreds of deposits a week across dozens of accounts. It's called smurfing. And it's an endless chess game against an opponent with infinite resources. At 23, your life is a masterpiece of curation. Your Instagram looks like any successful young woman in New York. Gallery openings, charity galas, architecture conferences. You sit on the board of a family foundation that distributed $1.2 million in scholarships last year. A magazine features you in a spread about young women reshaping the city's skyline. The photos are stunning. The story is immaculate. And every single pixel is a lie built on top of a lie built on top of a foundation you can never speak about. You perform normality so convincingly that the performance begins to erode something inside you. You're not pretending to be someone else. You're pretending to be yourself, the version that might have existed if your last name meant nothing. You watch your father now with adult eyes. He's 58 but moves like 70. His hair went white 3 years ago. He sleeps with a Beretta 92 on one nightstand and a rosary on the other. He's survived 2 federal investigations, 1 assassination attempt, and the betrayal of his closest childhood friend who wore a wire for 18 months before they found him. He's still the most powerful man in any room, but the power has carved lines into his face so deep they look like wounds. And then you look at your mother. Her hands still tremble at Mass. She still stands at the window. She has become the future no one warned you about. One evening, alone with the consilieri after a family gathering, he speaks with unusual honesty. I graduated top of my class at Fordham Law. I had offers from the best firms in the country. Instead, I've spent 35 years making sure your family's money looks clean. I can't leave. Not because they'd hurt me, but because I know where every dollar is, every account, every shell company, every name. That knowledge makes me indispensable and it makes me a prisoner. He pauses. So I stay. And every year the cage gets a little more comfortable and a little more permanent. He looks at you. It's not confession. It's a warning. You're the boss's daughter. You were born in a fortress disguised as a home. You have absolutely everything except the right to be no one. You live surrounded by people who would die for you, but you've never had a single conversation where you could be completely honest about who you are. And every morning you wake up in your beautiful apartment and you put on your beautiful clothes and you walk into your beautiful life and you perform the role of a woman who has earned everything through merit and ambition. And the performance is so convincing that sometimes, for a few hours, you almost believe it yourself. Almost.